There is no condom for the heart. And if you do not set boundaries, you obviously create bonds. Make sure that before you create bonds, they are the bonds that you actually wanted to create. Don't create bonds accidentally simply because you neglected boundaries in your life. Welcome to Sought Afters with Sonita. In this video, my husband, Dr. Sonki, and I will be discussing with you how to create healthy boundaries in male-female relationships. This is to avoid things like unnecessary soul ties and falling in love with people when you're not ready yet. When he's done, I'll also show you some statistics that young people are explaining the things that cause them to get attached to an opposite sex so that you can know consciously what is making you to get attached. He'll be giving us 3 key boundaries. And before we go to that, let's see how lack of boundaries got this our friend Zita into trouble.
It all started when this Facebook friend of mine started being very cozy and calling me all sorts of names. Angel, beautiful. Who is this Angel? So I just overlooked the thing and slept me. But he insisted, how did that concern me? One coconut head. I'll not even lie. I like when he calls me a beautiful angel. You know, when I'm at work, he will send updating me on how his work is going with lots of love emojis. It meant nothing to me though. But then one particular evening, he persisted, calling babe, asking questions and all of that. I was tired. I just wanted to sleep. So I thought of telling him that no, I'm not awake. But then I realized I'll be lying. Then I said, let me ask, why are you calling me babe? Then I said, no, let me not be mean for once. Now when he said, miss you, that was even more cringy. So I said, let me just ask him, what's going on? Then I realized that if I do that, he will get the chance to be talking too much. So I just say, hey, in order to discourage him. The way he responded was funny. He was like, oh my God, you just made my day, blah, blah, blah. But then something caught my attention. He said he had a work idea that needed me. I like to help. And the fact that he thinks I am brilliant, I won't lie. I like it when people see my brains. So I said, okay. And he sent this voice note explaining all the difficulties with his new project and all of that. And great enough, it was in my area of work. But then it was already late. Look at the time, past 10 p.m. I just wanted to sleep. So all I said was, I think it's a good idea. I'll be praying for you. I just wanted to dismiss him from my chat so that I could go me back to sleep quietly. After all, I'm not supposed to be texting people after 10 p.m. And then he called. I picked his call. I knew very well that if he goes into talking any sort of nonsense, I'll just drop and sleep. But no, he wasn't. He was passionately explaining about his business he wants to do and that. So I spent a lot of time explaining to him the different aspects, the strategies he used. He congratulated me and said a lot of different things. It was already past 11 in the night, but his sense of humor will not let me sleep. I laughed my life out. The beautiful thing is he was seeing all the good things in me. I did not even know how he got to see them because after all, we have never met. He's just my Facebook friend. In fact, we have not chatted a lot until recently that he started sending me messages back to back. But nevertheless, there is no harm in a good discussion. He's actually so funny. He cracked me up in many ways. I enjoyed the time with him as if he has been a friend for 50 years. But then, I knew I had to stop and go to sleep. But the discussion was so sweet. So we just continued until I eventually slept off. I got up late for work, but the beautiful part is the kind of message I got up to. Him calling me the most beautiful woman in the world and the best thing that has happened to him recently. I thought that I was the only one who enjoyed the time, but I was so happy when he said that he actually had the best night of his life talking to me. So I look forward for many of these nights, and actually we had a lot of them. We spoke all sorts of things from family to job to future. In fact, I was already seeing my future together with him, and I got up every morning expecting all these sweet messages, which I certainly always had. And at this point, I was deeply in love with him. The shocker came for me one morning when I got up as usual to read my morning sweet message, just to see an update on Facebook of him reuniting with his wife and 2 children. Actually, he was married all this while, but I didn't ask, even though I was in love with him. In fact, there are many things I did not ask. How come I fell so much in love with him in such a short time?
As Dr. Sonke go ahead to be discussing these boundaries, I would like you to jot in the comment section which boundary you think our friend Zita in the skip violated.
Thank you very much, my lovely wife, for this opportunity again to share some key biblical passages with respect to how to create healthy boundaries with opposite sex, which is a very big issue that we are having today. Relationship with opposite sex always get to a point where emotions can easily come in. And without boundaries, you can just find yourself diving and going. The first boundary I'll be talking on is that every single and even married people supposed to have communication boundary with the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Why is it so? Communication is a vehicle through which people develop intimacy. If we don't create communication boundary, like she said rightly, you are going to start developing a communication intimacy with somebody. This intimacy comes because as you speak to people, they indirectly feel your love tongue. Your love tongue is that part of you that contains your romantic emotion, which at times they are yearning for something that can feed them. And one of the ways that people feed some of this emotion is through communication, especially with opposite sex.
Sure.
And that's the reason why, if you don't limit the way you communicate with an opposite sex, this thing can create an intimacy, and it may not be the lady that you want to end up with. There are some men that actually become addicted to this type of flirting communication, where you just see a lady, you are communicating, you are looking very beautiful, you are dressing well. And some of them, they are saying those things not to compliment that lady from a perspective of sincerity, but it's a way to stir up emotions in the lady, and it becomes an addiction. When they start feeling those type of urges of sexual pleasure, they start looking for ways to communicate with this lady, and as they're communicating with this lady, they're actually feeding their emotions through those communication. The lady that way may just start enjoying it because ladies are being moved by what, and that makes them not even give critical thinking whether this is really the right person that I'm going on with. They just enjoy the communication.
Yeah.
Songs of Songs chapter 3 verse 5. The Bible tells us that you should not stir up love until it is due. If you don't have communication boundary, you will stir up your love or stir up the love of somebody. Emotions, love in this case is emotion. And when you don't have communication boundary, the tendency is that you are going to stir it up when it's not the right time. So we need to create that boundary. Do you see a guy who call you and you people are spending hours discussing over the phone, talking nothing that is leading anywhere? You spend your time talking, how was your day?
What have you eaten?
What have you eaten?
What are you wearing?
What are you wearing?
Are you lying on the bed?
Are you lying on the bed? You want to say you're communicating, say, oh, sorry, let me go to the toilet and eat myself, and all of those type of things. You are sitting in the toilet, are you sitting in the toilet pot while discussing? Those words automatically start creating images and visualization of what is happening. And you see, people keep doing that, and people can spend 2 hours just communicating. And at the end of it all, you ask yourself, what were they actually saying? What were they actually communicating? There is really nothing. But what was going on was that they were feeding their emotion through that communication. So you have to avoid it. When you see somebody who is just calling you and communicating over and over without leading you to anywhere, and you start discovering that something is triggering inside of you each time you communicate with that person, please, if you know that that's a person that you cannot be able to end up with as a husband or a wife, or you see that this is not the time that you are even interested or you are ready to get into any serious marital relationship, please better limit it. Put a boundary to it. Tell the person, please, I'm sorry, the way you are communicating is no more healthy in my side. If it's stirring certain type of things in me that I'm seeing I'm wasting a lot of time, and it also is creating a type of feeling that I think that it is not going to be healthy for two of us as children of God.
Yeah.
If you keep quiet, unfortunately, you can just discover yourself that you have developed, like she said, a soul tie with somebody that by the time you give him serious look into it, you just discover that this is not the person that I can be able to end up my life with, or this is not the right time for me to even end up, or even to have him settle down. And as a result of that, you start battling with your convictions and your feeling, because you are feeling attached to this person, but your conviction shows that this is not the person you can really end up with. But because of the fact that you do not put boundary in communicating, you develop an intimacy with the person. If it is work, talk work. If it is academic, talk academics. If it is a spiritual issue, discuss about the spiritual issues and end there. Don't go into those lousy talks. Limit it, because you will lead to communication intimacy, and that will trap you, and you will not be happy about it. Another key boundary that you need to set up is your mental, or what we call psychological boundary. Psychological boundary are speed breaks that you put in your mind, and you tell your mind that your mind should never go above this, or your mind will never go beyond this. That's what they call psychological boundaries. In fact, there are some men and there are some ladies out there that they have not yet fallen into sexual immorality, not because they cannot, but simply because the opportunity have not yet showed up. If the opportunity showed up, they will fall into it because they don't yet have psychological or what we call mental boundaries. Take an example of Joseph in Genesis chapter 39. When you read verse 9, especially the B part, hear what Joseph says. How can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? There was already a mental and psychological boundary that Joseph already put in his mind that he can never sin against God. Going to bed with this woman is like sinning against God. Because at that moment, there was no human being in that house that could, discover Joseph slept with this woman. But that psychological, what we call mental boundary that Joseph already put in his mind that he doesn't want to sin against God, already make him to know that what God is everywhere. God is in that room. That is the reason why he could not even give in. There are many young people that they are falling into terrible sexual sin and even find themselves getting married to somebody by force because they do not have any mental boundary. Maybe they enter into this lady's room and the atmosphere was very close, nobody was around, rain was falling, and they will know whether anybody will ever discover that they ever had anything. Just because of that, they found themselves into a sexual immorality because they have not yet set up any boundary in their mind that I will never do this because I know if I do this, it will be against God. Take, for example, Job. In Job chapter 31, verse 1, you hear what Job says. I have made a covenant with my eye never to look lustfully at a young girl. That is already a mental or psychological boundary that I've already put in his mind. When his eye sees and the thing is entering his mind, the psychological boundary that I've already created in his mind helps him to easily look away or to easily go away from something that could have attracted him into any problem. You put on those boundaries in your mind, they create a mental speed break that when your mind is just sleepy and going, immediately you think about that speed break that you have put as a boundary in your mind, it brings you back to your senses. Now, this leads us to the last boundary, which is physical boundary. Now I'm going to read verse 10 of Genesis 39. We see how Joseph actually set up a physical boundary also. He says, and as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her to lie beside her or to be with her. You realize that Joseph said, I will not even go closer to lie with her or even to be beside her.
That's right.
He will not even be beside her. And that is the reason why this woman called Joseph at the point where Joseph had gone back into her room, maybe to clean the bedroom or to take care to dress the bed, to do his day-to-day work. Joseph has already made up his mind that when this woman is alone, I will not have anything to go beside her. I'm going to, make sure that I put a distance because he was aware that if you go beside this woman, something is going to happen. And remember what Jesus Christ even says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 28 to 30. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. And if it is your eye or your leg that causes you to sin, cut it off. Because it is better for you to go to heaven without the right leg than for you to go to hell with your complete leg and with your complete eye. What Jesus Christ was speaking here was about boundary. He was actually talking about boundary because remember, he was talking about sexual immorality.
Yes.
Even if something that attaches you to that person is as important as your right eye or your right hand or your right leg, and that thing is the one that is causing you to be developing an emotional attachment to that person, cut off that thing.
Like the verse says, sometimes you need to cut off some people in your life completely.
Yeah.
People who don't respect your boundaries.
Yeah.
All those people that are trying to set your boundary, they are making as if they don't get it. You say, don't touch me. When they come around, they are touching you too much. You've told them emphatically, don't touch me. Don't come to my house and just lie on my bed. Don't come to my house half naked. Don't call me at 11 p.m. just to talk nonsense, or don't text me some kind of raw messages. And they keep doing it. Cut them off.
Yeah.
Some of them might have been your friends for long, and you start wondering, like, how do I cut this person off? He's my colleague.
Even they are as important as what?
If they are important as your right leg, as your eye, as your hand, cut it off.
Yeah.
Because
You have to cut it off.
Yes, you don't owe them that.
Yeah.
There is some level of intimacy that you owe only somebody that you two have really agreed to be in a relationship. And to
Exactly.
a certain extent, that you owe only somebody that you're actually married to.
Some people say, "Oh, I'm afraid if I cut off, the person will feel bad. I mean, it's my friend that we have been for long. You know, it is my Christian brother. It is my Christian sister. You know, I'm just feeling bad that if I cut off communicating with him, he'll be feeling very bad." What do you mean by that? Jesus Christ said that if you love your neighbor as you love yourself, which means that you're not loving the person more than the way you love your own self. That is fake love.
That's fake.
That thing you are saying like that is originating because you yourself you are enjoying it. It's not really because you really love that person. If you go deeper in your mind, you'll discover that it is a compromise you are trying to compromise, and you are hiding behind the scene that you don't want to hurt the person because you yourself you are enjoying it. Because if the consequences hit you hard, you will not say that again. You have to cut it off. And in physical boundary, there are two types of physical boundary that we must be able to create. We have distance and appearance. Appearance is especially in the side of ladies. You need to create physical boundary with your appearance when you are going before men. Don't allow certain part of your body to just be seen like that by men because you are going to entice them. A guy will just love you because you have seen a part of your body. And you think that he really loves you. Maybe you think that he's love, but it's just that attachment, that physical appearance that you appear before you. Like my wife will show you those statistics. You realize some of the time of crazy things that some men are being attached to women. And because we do not create that boundary in our physical appearance, it led to a soul tie or it led to a connection with a guy that do not even love you. And in the long run, you will just realize the guy turning and going to another person.
Yeah, that's true. As soon as he gets it, he wants another one. Because he did not discover you. He just saw by your packaging.
Exactly. And for the men, distance in terms of physical boundary is very key. Since we are being moved by what we see and we tended to touch it, better limit the person from not seeing the person. Now I always say, delete the person, the lady pictures in your phone. Delete it. You don't go to our social media page to be looking at her again. Limit the way you visit her. When you do that, you will realize that unnecessary bond that was boiling you will just start dying off immediately because you have reduced the number of images that lady has been bombarding your mind with, and you are thinking that it is love. Meanwhile, that those things that are just stirring your mind. So if you realize that I am getting too attached to this lady and this is a girl that I don't really want to find myself ending up with her, I don't want to find myself into any type of immorality, you have to cut off that distance. Don't go to her place. So like there's a young guy who told you, don't allow this lady to be coming to your place again. And he said, oh no, she always come and help me, maybe wash my dress or cook. I said, as your wife? Or what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean by that? That she comes and help you to cook because you are having a lot of your study program in school is very intensive.
Yes.
I was like, really?
That itself is lack of boundaries.
I said, that's lack of boundaries.
Yes.
I told the guy, if you are able to stop this lady from coming to your room and you are not visiting her, you will not find yourself into this attachment that you feel that, oh, you cannot do without her. You have to cut off that physical boundary. And maybe when she's even coming to your house, the way she dresses, she doesn't even dress in the type of way. She's coming and you are alone in your room. And you are expecting that you will just come like that and everything will just go off without you doing anything.
It's like you're lighting fire and adding kerosene, adding petrol, but you don't want
you don't want me to catch. I mean, it is very important. When you don't, Joseph even realized that when he had created his own physical boundary and the woman disobeyed those physical boundary, he ran. You can create a physical boundary and somebody disobey them. Like for example, you may say, this lady should not come to your house or this guy should not come to your house. Then he suddenly shows up. What you have to do is that you should run out of their room. In summary, what we are simply saying, these three boundaries. One, communication boundary. If you don't have communication boundary, you will lead to what we call communication intimacy. Two, psychological or mental boundaries. If you don't have psychological or mental boundary, when you are being suddenly caught by a circumstance or in an environment where there is no physical limitation, because you don't have strong convictions and speed breaks that are put into your mind that you will not do this, you can easily fall into developing a soul tie with somebody right up to a point or even maybe getting into sexual immorality with a person without you knowing. And lastly, physical boundary. And like we said, in the era of girls, their physical appearance should have boundaries. Don't allow certain part of your body to just be seen like that by men. And for the men, distance in terms of physical boundary is very key. Since we are being moved by what we see and we tended to touch it, better limit the person from not seeing the person. So these are the three boundaries that if we are able to take note of and we work on it, I'm telling you, you'll be able to have very healthy relationship with opposite sex, and you'll be able to open up your heart only to the one that is actually the one you have examined and you have seen that this is the person that I want to end on my life with. If not, on your wedding day, why some people will be praying for other girls will be there cursing you because you do not have boundaries. You open up in their life, they thought that you were their future potential husband. I mean, meanwhile, there were just this lack of boundaries that brought in that type of heart intimacy. Why there will be other ladies there? Because lack of boundaries, you make many guys to think that you were interested in them. And you finally come out, you're different, and many guys will be there that you break their heart. They thought that because you were just, coming to their room, dressed in a funny way, they thought that you were trying to seduce them because you love them, because you were always communicating with them throughout the night. They thought that it's because you really love them. And at the end of it all, you get married, instead of people blessing you, they'll be cursing you because of the hurt that you have caused in their heart, and they're trying to overcome the pain of that emotional damage that you have given to them. Meanwhile, just because of what? Lack of boundaries.
What you have shared is so true. And sometimes you may wonder why the absence of boundaries might lead to a soul tie, a bond, or an unwanted relationship. It's just because of the way males and females are built. Okay, so I surveyed many young people, but for the sake of time, I picked out 10 responses to share with you for you to see how the absence of boundary can lead to attachment, both for men and for women. For the men, what I ask is, what is the first thing that attracts you to a woman? Listen to the responses and I'll show you how it's related to boundaries at the end. The first guy, Tana, he said that the lady should not be overweight. She should have ass, that is big buttocks, and she should also have a cute face and a cute and sexy clothing style. The second guy said the lady should be beautiful. He went further to say that the idea that what's in the inside is more important is true, but that what will attract him is what's on the outside before he will even start looking at what is on the inside. The third guy said that the first thing he noticed in a woman is her smile. So it's after you have attracted him with your smile before you now start thinking of checking out any other thing about you. This fourth guy is rather funny to me because he said that though other guys like buttocks and breast and all of that, for him, what actually attracts him is a woman with a big stomach. I don't know how, but that's what he said. And the last one that I considered for men is that of Van. And he said, boys look at the physical things, but only men take time to look at the inner things. For this question that I asked to men on what's the first thing that makes them fall in love, if you look well, you see that they are all things that are physical. Even though the last person mentioned the inner part, that is they're talking of a mature man now, a man who knows what he's saying. But generally for men, what they see first in a woman is the physical aspect, the smile, the dressing style, the buttocks, the breast, and whatsoever they are saying. That does explain truly what he was saying earlier about physical boundaries. It works most for men. If you're a man that you don't have physical boundaries, you're bound to fall. Once you keep looking or touching at something, you end up falling for it because this is what attracts men. Whether you are the Holy Spirit himself, once you are in this flesh and you don't have boundaries, you will be attracted by these things. They will catch you and pin you down, maybe when you don't even have time to look at the inside. I think this talks clearly what Proverbs 31 verse 30 will say, that charm is deceitful, beauty is fleeting, but the woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. So if you're just looking without boundaries, you fall into the trap of charm and beauty, which is what many young people confess that it is their main attraction. Now, let's go to ladies. For the ladies, I asked, what's the first thing that makes a woman fall in love with a man? And see what 5 out of the many ladies said. The first lady said, give her attention, make her feel special. The second lady said, women fall in love with the bonding and communication. The third one said it's all about emotional connection, and she defined emotional connection as vulnerability and communication. The fourth lady said that she will easily fall in love with somebody who initiates conversation and somebody who has a good sense of humor. This last lady said that although 60% of women will go for somebody that has money, about 40% of women will go for somebody who show care and trust. What do you recognize in this? When you look at this, you see clearly that what will make a woman fall easily is communication. So if you're a woman and you don't have strict communication boundaries in your life, you allow any guy to just be talking to you anyhow. Somebody will talk his way into your life without you even knowing him. Just like in the skit we saw earlier, you'll notice that this lady allowed the guy to talk his way, to discuss, to gist and chat his way into the inner part of her heart. So that she was so in love, she did not even know anything about the guy yet. So as lady, guard your communication more. I know physical also works for ladies and communication also works for guys. And we also know the psychological boundaries work for both of them. But it's also good to notice which one is your major weak point and guard it jealously so that you don't fall into a trap that you're not even ready for.